Good morning, everybody, and welcome to video 1. There seems to be a lot of conversation going on about Harry and what went on at the Platinum Jubilee. I don't know why we're revisiting this after 2 years, but if the mainstream media wants to revisit it, then I say we should too. Let's go. This article came out bringing up that 2 years ago this week was when the Platinum Jubilee was going on and when Harry and Meghan showed back up in the UK. And remember, this was just like one of the craziest things. Everybody wanted to stay away. All the major people wanted to stay away from Harry and Meghan. There were talks about microphones under his jacket, and she had something under her lapel, and all of this kind of stuff was going on. And this is the first time the family would have been together in 2.5 years. So what happened? Well, Harry and Meghan were supposed to arrive in the minivan with Edward and Sophie and their children, and they were running late. So a car had to be sent for them so that they were able to come separately. So they walked up the stairs of St. Paul's Cathedral. There was booing, do not kid yourself. And they walked in to say hello to everybody, as they were, entering the church. Now, Harry had a face of thunder because he was most uncomfortable. After going down the receiving line, they walked up to this gentleman in the red jacket who basically said, "Let me escort you to your seats." So they ended up getting their own promenade to their seats because they didn't ride. This wasn't supposed to happen, but they did it so that they were able to arrive separately and have their own walk. Now, what you may not notice as they're walking down is, number one, Meghan's doing that exaggerated left, right, left, hip walk. Harry looks absolutely uncomfortable. And if you look at the people around them, they're getting nasty looks, and people are just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're here," and how rude. And I'm sure people were whispering a little bit behind the scenes, and I'm pretty sure Harry was able to hear what they were saying. They were not welcomed with open arms by the people in the church. Remember, everybody there in the church had been called a racist by Harry and Meghan. So eventually they get up to the top area where they're supposed to be seated. Princess Eugenie and Beatrice and everybody else was already seated in their seats, which, I think Harry and Meghan were angling for a better seat. So as they finish what I call the walk of shame, because that's literally what this was, they get up to where they're supposed to be. And Harry immediately looks over and is like, "Wait a minute, where are we supposed to be?" And they're pointing in. And the reason is they were several people in like the middle of the row. They were not on the end. And oh my God, was Harry upset and angry. So for those of you who don't know what happened, they got up there and Harry said, "Well, why don't everybody scooch in and we'll sit on the end?" And the guy in the red jacket said, "No, that's your seat over there." And Harry looked up at him and said, "And who said that?" And the guy looked right at him and said, "Your grandmother." So all of Harry's plans to try to get a better seat and all of this other stuff went right down the drain. Everybody ended up standing up, piling out, moving around so that Harry and Meghan could scooch into the middle row away from the end and away from the other senior royals, as you can see. And Harry was most unhappy that happened. I think that was the best conversation I heard that took place that day. Now, when the procession started, here comes Catherine and William. She looked absolutely lovely in that lemon yellow. And of course, they're walking with the king and queen because they are senior royals. But people noticed Meghan Markle's reaction to her when she passed by. So here's a little video of it. They're passing by. Meghan is the front of the row. And you'll see that what Meghan does is she turns her head and refuses to look at Catherine as she's walking past. Here's a picture just in case you can't discern where Meghan is. And here it is again, zoomed in a little bit. Look at Meghan. She turns her head. She's like a 2-year-old. I'm like, you're in church, for the love of God. Get a grip on yourself. But I just don't think she can control herself. She's like a 2-year-old. For the rest of the service that day, Harry looked either very bored or very angry. There was like no in between with him. You know what I'm saying? He was either just flat out angry at the way, once again, I'm sure he felt that he and Meghan were mistreated because they weren't sitting with the other senior royals. You know, that Zara and Mike and all of them were on the other side of the aisle. He was put with his cousins. Yeah, I don't think he was happy about that at all. And let me tell you, Catherine saw them and actually rolled her eyes. That's one of the few times I've seen her show emotion. Harry also did the same thing here that he ended up doing at the coronation 2 years later. He was making faces and acting a buffoon. And then at one point, he had this whole conversation with Meghan about something going on with his outfit. But the lady over his left shoulder in the blue hat, the look on her face, I think, says it all about how people were feeling about him that day. So when the service ended and the other royals walked ahead, because Harry and Meghan were no longer senior royals and they had to walk in the back, right? So again, the king, the queen, Catherine, William, they filed out in a particular order. And I'm sure Harry and Meghan were upset because they were behind Peter Phillips and Zara Phillips and all of them. They were way in the back, getting a taste of what it's like to not be a senior royal. Even as they were saying goodbye, you can see Catherine was way ahead of them going down the line. And where were they? They were in the back in the crush of people. That's exactly what happened. All right. So when this finished, they headed outside to get in their cars. Again, you're supposed to go in a specific order. And we all know what happened next. They went outside. They tried to talk. It was very obvious that Mike Tyndall was keeping his distance. Nobody really wanted to speak to them. The only person who actually spoke to them was Zara. Peter Phillips also didn't have anything to say to them. And the two of them were like, oh, is that our car? Is that our car? And then they went walking down to get in the car. Well, this is where the big stuff happened, where Meghan says that she will never, ever, ever again return to the UK, because this is where the biggest booing took place. And in case you missed it the first time I played it 2 years ago, listen up. We also know that they skipped the family luncheon afterwards because nobody was talking to them. Listen, nobody else wanted to end up on Netflix. All right, you guys know what I want. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and follow me over to video 2. You're not going to want to miss that. Let's go.